We are, just want to make sure Orient Neighborhood Television catches us here for a minute. I see them on there. I'm going to start the recording from my end. As a reminder from at ONTV, if you just want to turn on the active cameras, it will only show those cameras that are active. And the other thing I would say is at the front end here, if you're not speaking, the board members should have their cameras on. But if you are not speaking, we would just ask you to turn your camera off. And we'll give you an opportunity, as we do always, for public comment. We are on item, we did start at 6 p.m. We had a closed session to discuss pending litigation and a legal opinion regarding a labor agreement. Now we will circle back to item 3. Penny, who do you have lined up tonight for us for invocation?
Pastor Josh Yates is here.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much, Pastor Josh. If you could turn on your camera, we'd love to see you. And I will. We'll
this
start.
Conference will now be recorded.
We'll start with our invocation and pledge, as we always do, and then I will give you the instructions for the meeting as we go. Sorry, lots of things.
Chris, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have Father Mike Vershave here as well, so we'll have 2 pastors praying tonight.
All right, wonderful, and there's some exciting news about Father Mike as well. So. Josh, and then we'll introduce Father Mike, and then we'll do the pledge. So thanks, Pastor Josh.
All right. Well, let's pray together. Father, we just thank you so much for your guidance, your protection. God, we thank you for just who you are. I thank you for all of our government officials, specifically here at the Orion Township Board, and everybody who serves in this capacity, and how well they've served in their own responsibilities during this time, Lord. We're just so grateful for the leadership you've given us here in Orion Township, God. And we just pray your wisdom upon them. We pray your guidance upon them for the things they discuss tonight. And as they continue to lead us through this time and out of this time, we pray, God, we thank you for your grace and mercy in our lives. And we thank you for how you've been working in our country and in our state and in our township. Lord, we just give this night to you, and we just ask for continued wisdom. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Father Mike, thank you for joining us. What's going on with you, Father Mike? As I heard it might be a big month for you. Can you hear us, Father Mike? I don't know. All right, well.
There we go.
There it is.
Good. Yes, June 30th, I'll be retiring as pastor of St. Joseph's after 17 years. And in fact, I'm joining you from my cottage up in Maple City, just to offer the invocation and to thank you for all that you do for our community, for St. Joseph's, and for all believers in Orion Township. So I'm going to segue off of Pastor Josh's prayer. It's pretty much the same. So
thank you.
God of creation, Lord of love, we give you thanks for this meeting of the Orion Township Board this evening and for all the blessings we have received from your hand. We thank you in a special way for the elected and appointed leaders of this township, the employees and volunteers who have served our community so generously in response to this serious pandemic that has brought serious illness, economic woes, and even death to some of our citizens. As we strive to promote the common good, the safety and health of all, we beg your strength and we beg you to strengthen the spirits of those who lead, who serve, and those who suffer. Deliver us from disease, every evil, and hatred. May our community be united in love, tolerant, and concerned for the weak and the most vulnerable among us. Send your spirit of wisdom and understanding, peace and harmony to all present as the work of this meeting begins. We thank you for all that has been and for all that will be. Amen.
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 Father Mike, appreciate you and everything you've done for our community. And I was wondering if there's any truth to the rumor that having Brian Burney as part of your congregation just got to be too much. It was time to retire.
The opposite's true. His children are a wonderful addition to St. Joseph's School. They're cute as can be, and we're so grateful that Brian and his family are part of St. Joe's.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can I just say, Father Mike, we did have big plans for you. We were going to bring a bunch of students in when this was previously planned, but it just didn't work out. But I'll say on a personal note, and I know I can speak for a lot of the families at St. Joe's, that you will be missed, and we appreciate everything that you've done. You've been a great leader for our parish and fantastic school, but we all understand and hope you enjoy your retirement and that we see you soon. So thank you very much for everything, and God love you.
Thanks, Brian. Just on a personal note, my very first paycheck came from St. Joseph Parish when I was 16, cutting grass there. And my last paycheck is coming from them via the government, the PPP. So I'm grateful for that too. So thank you to all for all you've done for our community. I'm really proud of Orion Township and all the other townships that St. Joe's serves, but especially your leadership. During this pandemic, it's been very outstanding. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll let you get to your meeting after the pledge.
No problem. No, but we wanted to take, as Brian stated, we had some plans we were going to surprise you with, and unfortunately it was the meeting that our last, we weren't able to meet. The first meeting we were in the state shutdown. So we have something special we want to do for you at some point. We certainly appreciate your commitment to our community. So thank you, sir. And you've been a staunch supporter of all the things in our community. And I'm grateful for your friendship. So thank you, and get back to the log. Hopefully the sun is setting as beautiful up north as it is down here. So we'll let you enjoy it.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Okay, so if you could stand and we'll recite the pledge together, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. A very unflattering look of me. I apologize for that. The COVID-19 is real. Can you guys hear me okay? I pushed something on my webcam. Okay, good. Just want to make sure I'm not, I don't know what I pushed, but something changed on my screen. Okay. Well, if you can't, someone will shout at me, please. I appreciate that. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We have gotten better at these virtual meetings. We're going to do our best. I'm going to do my best to show you things on the screen. Those of you watching from home, we still have lots of opportunities and ways for you to interact with us, and we want you to. So the first way you can do that is by logging into the Gotomeeting channel. I'm going to kind of go through the instructions on that. If you go to our website, you'll see the notice for this meeting. There's instructions on the actual login ID. Gotomeeting is an app you could download, or you can log into your computer to access that. What that will allow you to do is us to see and hear you when we have an opportunity for public comment. And when we do get to public comment, we will go first to those that are on the computer. Then we will move to anyone that has called in. There's also call-in instructions. You can find that on our website. And then on this tool, Gotomeeting, there's a chat function. So we'll check the chat function. And then last, if you don't want to do any of those things, you can still send us an email. The email address is board, B-O-A-R-D, at oriontownship.org, board at oriontownship.org. And I see the ONTV feed. They have that email address up. They'll leave that up, I think, for the duration of our meeting. So as always, we will give you an opportunity to give public comment on agenda items and non-agenda items. So we want your input. Just because we are doing this virtually doesn't mean we don't want your involvement. So thank you for those of you that have tuned in. As mentioned, we will be moving. I think I started mentioning this and I started telling you the instructions. We'll be moving back to in-person meetings in July. And I think many of us are excited about that as our state begins to continue to reopen. And those meetings, I'll say this a few times so you all hear this, but those meetings will be happening at the Orient Center. Those meetings will not be happening here at Township Hall. They'll be happening at the Orient Center. All of our board and commission meetings. So our planning commission, our zoning board of appeals, and this board, the Township Board, will be meeting at the Orient Center starting July 1st. That's a Wednesday. That'll be a planning commission meeting. They'll be the first meeting down there. I'll explain a little bit more of that at the end of the meeting, but for now, we're going to continue with our business tonight. and go to our first item on tonight's agenda, which is approval of the bills. And I will try to share my screen to show you that. Actually, Sam, Temko, can you please make me an organizer so I can share my screen? Thank you. Yes, Ms. Steele.
I'd like to make a motion to pay the bills in the total amount of $1,308,268.64 with a couple comments.
Support.
And then my comments would include, we needed a new well at Friendship Park for $26,000. We had our sewer bill of $318,000, our water bill for $259,000. We have a lot of activity going with OHM, our engineering consultant with Pocket Parks, Safety Pass. We are still doing activity around the township. We had the Baldwin Road contribution for easement acquisitions of $133,000. We finishing our DPW garage for $106,000. And we had a bunch of refunds for Parks and Rec of $5,900 and a bunch of SADs this time of $45,000. And those were some of the biggest bills. Thank you.
Thank you. So it was moved by Steele, supported by Flutter. Are there any other comments or questions from the board? Seeing none, any public comment on the bills? And again, you just have to unmute yourself. I hear no one unmuting themselves. We'll go to chat bubble. There's no chat yet. And there's nothing, I don't think, on the, no emails on the board at Orion Township. But Clerk Schultz, would you please call the roll on tonight's, on the payment of the bills, please?
Flood then Steinmal,
Yes.
Yes.
Barnett then Schultz,
Yes.
yes. Steele then Bernie,
Yes.
Yes.
Dalrymple,
Yes.
Okay, the bills are paid. That brings us to brief public comment, part one. This is the first chance you'll have to address the board. If you want to do that, this is on non-agenda items. We ask that you keep your comments to about 3 minutes because we have quite a bit of business to do tonight. This is the first opportunity. If you have something you want to talk about that's on the agenda, we will give you a chance when we get to that item. So is there anyone that would want to give a public comment at this time? First, again, we'll go to those of you that are on the Gotomeeting platform. So this would be a chance you can unmute yourself. Okay. Hearing no one unmute themselves. How about, let's see, the chat bubble is nothing. And let's go to the email. Penny, do you have anything? Okay, so we have no public comments at this time. But we, again, will give you an opportunity. And if it's something you want to type, you can go ahead and start. Or if you have an item you want to get public comment on that's further down the agenda, go ahead and send us that email at board@oriontownship.org. And so we'll have that when we get to that item. Tonight's consent agenda. First we need to approve the agenda. So I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda. I'd like to ask that we add a closed session at the end of the meeting to discuss an attorney opinion. And I don't know if there's any other motion, any other movement anyone would like to make, or I'd entertain a motion to approve. Yes, John, and then Donnie.
I would like to move 8E down to pending. I guess that would be 9D.
Yep.
And
Was
didn't we just get a memo just before the meeting, about an hour before?
HR.
That's the closed session.
No, had to do with
Good.
registration clerk, voter registration.
I'm sorry, yes.
Couldn't
Thank
that be added someplace?
Yes, thank you. So we'll add that as, want that on consent? You okay with that being on consent, John?
I'm okay with it being on consent.
Okay, so we'll add that as 8F, because we moved E. So voter registration clerk.
It would be E. Right.
Well, I don't want to have it called E because there wasn't E, so just, okay.
I wanted to bring down Chris, Recollect service agreement, and I spoke to Sam about it. I just think there was some good information that other people would want to hear. I don't know if you could put it. Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks.
Yeah, you know what, let's put that as, if you're okay with it, we'll put that as the first item on pending. Because I agree, while we have people's attention, I was gonna cover it in consent, but, are you okay with that, Donnie? Okay. Okay. All right, are there any other changes or a motion to approve as amended?
Mr. Supervisor, I make the motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved by Flood, supported by Steinle. Any other comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Or thumbs up. Anyone opposed? That motion passes 7-0. Brings us to tonight's consent agenda, which consists of the following items. Tonight on our consent agenda, we will be voting on all these items with one vote. First, we will be approving our minutes from our meeting on June 1st. We will be approving investment portfolio change reports in our Robinson monthly commentary. We'll be approving a request for a fireworks display at Indianwood Country Club. And we will be hiring a full-time voter registration clerk. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Support.
Moved by Flood, supported by Bernie. Comments or questions on any of these items from the board? The comments I wanted to make was on the items that were moved down, so I'm good. Is there any public comment on any of these items? The minutes, the investment portfolio report, the fireworks display at Indianwood, and hiring a voter registration clerk. John?
Just one comment, just for the sake of the public. The voter registration clerk is actually our current was our part-time clerk. So she's taken the position that was vacated and coming full-time, just so people know.
That's correct. Thank you. Thanks for stating that. Okay. I see no chat bubbles. Anyone want to give public comment? I'll let you unmute. I'll be quiet for a moment. There is no emails and there's no chat. So I'd ask the clerk to call the roll on the move by Flood and the support by Bernie.
Schultz, yes. Steele, then Bernie.
Yes.
Yes.
Dalrymple, then Flood.
Blood says yes.
We lost Dalrymple.
Mm.
Steinle, then Barnett.
Yes.
Yes.
And do I say abstain or how do I record the vote for Julie?
Just as if she's not here, it'll be 6-0.
Thank you.
Okay. That I was just kind of slow rolling it just to see if she was able to join, but we'll continue. We'll move on. Okay. So the consent agenda passes 6-0. That brings us to tonight's pending business. The first item on pending business is the Recollect service agreement. I know Sam Temko is here next door to me. I will share my screen for a moment here and give you some information on that. But this is exciting news that we're asking for approval for a one-year service agreement with Recollect Systems, Inc. The township was awarded a grant for the recycling partnership in August 2019 as part of that transition to our single waste hauler. In addition to the portion of the grant which covered the purchase of the recycling carts, there's an educational and outreach component that we were expected to do. The remaining grant balance for education and outreach is $7,774. Township is seeking to use a portion of this balance to enter into a one-year service agreement with Recollect Systems, Inc. Recollect is a technology company that provides digital tools to help government and waste haulers reduce recycling contamination, lower call volumes, increase diversion from the landfills to recycling facilities, teach proper recycling habits, and build actionable insights while encouraging individuals to be better recyclers. The two Recollect tools included in this agreement are the collection calendar and the waste wizard. Collection calendar allows residents to easily find their collection day and subscribe to weekly collection reminders. The township will also send out educational messaging with alerts to remind residents how to recycle right or to promote other township services. In addition to sending out notifications, we can also let people know if there'll be delays for emergencies, snow, holiday delays, or other communication needs. Waste Wizard is a very cool tool that a resident can use and access to identify what waste goes where by offering disposal instructions for each item they search. It also guide residents where and when they can dispose of electronic and other household hazardous waste materials. It's currently a tool used by the RSOC, which is the regional recycling conglomeration that we are part of. And Orion Townships, our materials are recycled there. Many of us visited that facility last year. It was pretty eye-opening, very interesting tour. So we're excited about this. You know, we've got a lot of education that we are hopeful to do with our residents as we continue to grow our garbage program and our recycling program. So the cost is $53.8740, and you can see it would leave the remaining what it would leave remaining. So I know Sam Temko's here if there are specific questions, because she has done an awesome job leading the entire garbage transition for the township. So thank you, Sam. And I would entertain a motion and or questions. The motion would be to enter into the attached agreement with Recollect, authorize the supervisor to sign on behalf of the township. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Support.
It was moved by Steele and supported by Bernie. Are there any comments, questions? Because if there are, I will ask Sam to help us out with those if I can't answer them.
Chris,
Yeah.
it was a lot of information in a one document, and I just thought maybe if Sam could just kind of like give a quick overview of what exactly this will do. I think, what's the benefit of it? What are we trying to accomplish? How does it work? That type of, how do you sign up for it? How do we get it known to the public?
Yes.
And once they sign up, what happens? Those were the questions that I had asked earlier.
Okay, so I think like first and foremost, Donnie, like you mentioned, one of the biggest things is going to be promoting this as a tool that we have so that it gets used, because it will be an electronic tool. And they do offer, as part of the implementation plan, like marketing, promotional kind of tools to help launch the kit. And so we'll probably use a lot of our existing tools to promote this. I would say with the collection calendar, what's really, valuable about that as far as the service reminders go is that GFL currently doesn't have that capability to send out. So like, for instance, we just went past Memorial Day, and that was a holiday week. Everybody's collection was delayed a day. Other providers in the past would have been able to send out an email notification or reminder that your day is going to be missed or it will be delayed. GFL doesn't have that capability. This tool will allow us to do that. And it will also, as part of our grant, we are required to do education and outreach. And so we can use this also to send out alerts and education tips to people about, best recycling practices and what goes where. With the Waste Wizard, I notice I get reports daily from GFL about what residents are asking them, like what online service requests they're submitting. And there's a lot of questions about, you know, is this recyclable or not? Is this an acceptable bulky item? How do I dispose of this? Will you take it? So having this tool available could alleviate those questions ahead of time and stop, you know, prevent residents from having to wait and go through the GFL customer service system. And since it's already a tool used by our recovery facility, they're familiar with it and would be able to provide us with the, you know, the very detailed list of recyclable materials, because the way that the tool works is it starts auto-populating results as you're typing it in. So you can just type in, you know, bag, and it will come up with a variety of different types of bags that you might be considering disposing of, or paint. And is it just an oil-based paint, a latex paint, just the empty paint can? And it will let you know, put this in the trash, you can recycle this, or no, this is a hazardous waste, and your next hazardous waste day is, you know, whatever day our next hazardous waste day is. The Waste Wizard tool, both of them actually provide us with, on the admin side, you know, usage summary reports. So one, we can see how well the tool is being used, but also with the Waste Wizard, we can see the most frequently searched items, and that could be a key indicator of what we need to do some more education on to the community about, you know, how to dispose of certain items. So.
Yes.
And I would say that we do have, you know, the $7,000 left in the grant, and we did complete the 3 required components. So that's really now it's up to us to determine how we want to spend the rest of that before the grant time period expires. And personally, since it's a recycling grant, I would rather do something more like electronic than sending out, you know, paper mailings and things like that.
So we could promote our no hazard day and free
the free disposal day. And we can promote other things that aren't necessarily garbage related if we wanted to. So even coming out of this COVID period, you know, this could have been a tool that we could use in those kind of cases. So it is another way to just send out, you know, notifications. We could promote other events in the township. So, you know, some things that the Parks and Recreation Department does as far as like maybe, you know, their closet clean out events and things like that. We could promote those, their farmers market that they're doing now. So it has a lot of benefits, and it is only a 1-year agreement. So we can use the summary reports to see how well it's being used and determine if we want to move forward with it into future years. But the first year would be fully covered by the grant.
Awesome. Yeah, it's cool. We moused around on it a little bit and saw that it's a useful tool. Sam, remind us again, how much was the grant that you were extremely instrumental in helping us secure?
Well, this grant with the recycling partnership for education and outreach, it was $1 per cart that was delivered. So we had just over $12,000 to use for education and outreach. The 2 grants combined were about $500,000, just shy of that.
So I just wanted you to say that $500,000 number again, because not all the communities that are around us switching at this time have had any grants on. So Sam's done a great job. So thank you for that. So it is a requirement of the grant that we do education. This will satisfy the requirement. This will satisfy that requirement. And so I'm fully in support of this. I appreciate your work on this, Sam, and leading it. Are there any other questions or comments? We will work with the staff in my office to help get the word out to our community. And once we sign up and get onboarded, Sam's also in the process of helping us transition our website. So, but this will happen around the same time, probably, which will make things interesting. So with that, is there any, I do want to offer public comment. Is there any public comment on this item? I do want to say, Mike, I'll be quiet for a minute. Is there public comment? Hearing none. There's no chats and there are no emails. So there's no public comment on this. I do want to say two things. Thanks to Waste Management Eagle Valley. I know Mike covered it at the last board meeting, but they had a successful free disposal day at Eagle Valley. And then the bad news is, which probably Mike was going to say this maybe in his comments, but I'll tell you since we're talking about it now, there was a no-haz day, household hazardous waste day at Kensington. We were thrilled. We were excited. They were going to make it a great event and provide free food for our residents and all kinds of stuff. And that has been canceled due to COVID. So we just got the word last week that the county's canceling. They're still hopeful to have 1 or 2 events in the county. Our residents could still participate in those events. So we will put those dates out when we know them for sure. But because lots of people have been cleaning their garages and their basement, we've been actually getting a lot of calls for people wanting to know when they can get rid of that stuff. And so stay tuned, but it won't be in July at Kensington, unfortunately. So with that, it was moved by Steele, supported by Bernie. Let's just do a roll call because it's easier.
Steele,
Yes.
Bernie, then Dalrymple.
Yes.
Flood,
Yes.
then Stein- Sorry, Dalrymple. Flood, then Stimo.
Yes.
Yes.
Barnett, then Schultz.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. That passes 7-0. Next is the second reading. Item B now tonight was I moved it. Second reading of the PC 2019-51, which was text amendments to the zoning ordinance for the Gingiville Center overlay and the Brown Innovation Zone District. And this is a second reading. I wanted to let you know that I did send an email asking you not to respond to it, but so at least you could read what I was proposing. I did talk to Dan Kelly about this today. There's been some discussion about this. Basically, we've asked the Planning Commission to assist us, and Tammy Gerling has done a phenomenal job leading this process. With updating the ordinance. Maybe I'll just go right to the memo first, so that it makes it easier. So the board discussed this. We held our first reading back on May 18th. It was published on May 28th, Oakland Press for second reading and possible adoption tonight. The one thing I wanted to just throw out there to the board, and there's been some discussion about this, and I'll put it on my screen here. Oops. Thanks for your patience. I'm managing a few different screens here. Okay. On the Brown Road District, I'm asking the board to consider changing a couple shoulds to shalls, and it's on page 5. And I highlighted this in my email to you, and then consider adding one more line that's very similar to what's in the Gingiville overlay district text amendment. So the reason that it's there, and there was some discussion at the Planning Commission about this, we're looking at potentially allowing, we know that Brown Road, which is the Biz District, is a unique site for the township. We know that there aren't many like it. We are trying to attract high quality developments to Brown Road. We have a couple that are on the hook. We haven't quite reeled in yet. But some of the feedback we received from developers had to do with some of the things that the Planning Commission addressed in these text amendments. The concern that I have is the shalls that are in these multifamily areas, like the maximum number of floors in a building shall be 5. And the other one was, when more than one freestanding multiple building is proposed as part of a unified development, the number of stories shall be varied. And the reason I wanted to at least ask the board to consider changing from shall to should means we are doing the best we can to limit the number of cases that go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals, I had this discussion with our attorney, when they look at an issue, they have to look at a singular focused issue. They're not looking at the overall picture. They're looking specifically at a variance. And in this case, let's say a multi-building development wanted to come on Brown Road, but for whatever reason, and I don't have a specific example, there's not an applicant right now that this would pertain to, but for whatever reason, they say, you know what, we need our building heights to be the same on this site for whatever reason. I don't want I'd like the planning commission to have the authority to be able to grant that based on, again, this is the last thing I'd like to have the board consider adding, at the end of that section, for the planning commission. So this would be section 34.04. It'd called modifications of standards, and it would be very similar to in the Gingiville district, which this is also being approved. Their section 33.03 says modification of standards, and it says the planning commission shall have the authority to waive or modify standards. So what I'd like to add potentially, if you're agreeable to this, and Dan, I think will weigh in and let us know that this would be considered a minor change between the first and second readings. But that the planning commission shall have the authority to waive or modify the standards of section 34.03 based upon economic impact, quality of architectural design, and overall compatibility with the district. So we want to give the planning commission where they can look at the whole picture, look at the entire development, see the impact on the community. If it's a really high quality development and they say, we need to have our buildings be the same height, I don't want them to have to go to the ZBA for multiple variances in order to make each building, be waived from that. So I did talk to Dan about this. Dan, can you just weigh in a little bit and just, if there's things I missed, but you understand the intent of what I'm trying to say here, and then I'll open it up for discussions and or motion. You're muted.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I think you summarized it accurately. Obviously, there's no problem with changing shall to should. I think everybody understands what that means. It still provides a standard, but it's not mandatory. And if you look at those sections, those are, specific to those sections. And then the catch-all provision at the end is similar to catch-all provisions that we've had in ordinances. I think we have sort of a catch-all in the Gingiville district as well, that just gives the planning commission a little bit more flexibility to grant waivers, if you will, or modifications from the standards based upon the criteria that's laid out there: economic impact, quality of architectural design, and overall compatibility with the district. So those, in my opinion, we noticed the first reading of an ordinance to let the public know that we're considering this ordinance. And if they are interested in the passage of this ordinance, that they should be at this meeting. So a minor change like that is within the realm of acceptable. It's not a complete rewriting of the ordinance, if you will.
And the only thing I'll add is, and then I'll open up to the board. I'm not doing this to make it, I'm not proposing we do this to make it easier for developers to have a quicker way or anything we make no mistake. We want high quality developments. We also don't want to inundate the ZBA. So I want to give the authority to the planning commission to be able to make some of these decisions. And again, the three areas that I wanted to give them, add the shalls to should, which again, it's still recommended, and the planning commission still could deny someone if they don't meet these criteria, if the overall development doesn't match the kind of the flavor of what we're looking for. But the three areas would be the building height. It says shall be maximum height shall be 5 stories or 60 feet. If someone I wanted to change that to should be, and again, I think that would still give them the authority to say no. It also says the second area was 3, which it says when there's more than one freestanding multiple family building as part of a unified development, the number of stories shall be varied. So meaning that right now they would have to have different heights and number of stories of buildings. And yes, we want that, but I'd like that to be should. And then the last one would be garages and carports shall be oriented internally, and garage doors and carports shall not be located in the front yards. Garage doors shall not face public streets unless they're located in the rear yard. So again, if there's a parking garage or something like that, and it's part of an overall development and it's high quality architecture, It's a high economic impact in a good way and overall compatibility with the district. I'd like the planning commission to be able to make that decision. So those are my comments and thoughts. I've taken a deeper dive on this and had a chance to kind of watch some of the discussion at the planning commission. Any comments, questions? That entertain a motion. You can say I'm crazy and we could just have it go through with it like it was. Those are your options. John, go ahead.
Well, you talked about a number of areas. As far as the building height, I'm not in favor of that one. That one should default to that. That's the maximum height. And if you want to go higher than that, it should be a tougher road to go. And that's trying to get a variance. I don't think you want to do that. The one about the multiple heights and stuff, I'm kind of neutral on. I guess if they don't want to do that, they don't have to. I think the criteria that you're setting up is a little vague. That, you're saying it's vague on purpose, and then we can say whatever we want. But then again, as you know, it's hard to defend sometimes. And then the garage doors. See, I don't have it all now. I don't have that memo that you sent out. I think that had to do with multifamilies. So, that's a unit, and yeah, we prefer to have the garage in the back or in the back, not necessarily in the front.
I agree. You prefer to, but if you have a unique style, we've seen developments and styles of developments change over the years. If you have a unique, we're trying to make this more timeless and not have to come back and inundate the ZBA with requests for variances. Still have, it still keeps the skeleton frame of the intent of everything you're trying to do there. It just, again, I think the best way that I was trying to put this into words when I was talking with Dan, and he really said it a good way. When you go to the ZBA, they're looking at one specific thing. They can't look at, hey, this is a great quality of development. This is, they can't look at, some of the things that the planning commission can. They specifically have to look at, hey, the building height. And is there a practical difficulty because this developer is trying to make a building 65 feet tall instead of 60? And it's a very narrow window that they have. The planning commission can look at the overall development and make sure it matches the intent. And trust me, the intent is we're looking for high dollar, high quality economic development. We're not trying to cheapen things up. So when I was kind of voicing these things to Dan, he, we sort of, he helped me kind of come to some of these words just in full disclosure. But the purpose is not to make the rules not matter, but to sort of give the planning commission the opportunity to look at the overall developments. You still have the skeleton framework and the intent of what we're trying to do, but not have it go to the ZBA, where sometimes they don't have they're not able to even look outside of that scope of what they're being asked, even if it's an amazing development. Is that a good way of saying that, Dan?
Yeah, no, I think everybody understands that. That's a good point.
So again, the planning commission has done a phenomenal job in the planning department, led by Tammy, has done a great job getting us here. I have talked to Tammy about this, full disclosure, and we don't have anything specific to hang our hat on today, but she generally agrees. I think she's on here. I don't necessarily want to speak too much for her, but she didn't think I was crazy when I talked to her about this. We thought it might make sense. So, Tammy, you don't have to jump in, but if you wanted to, you can. If I don't see you jump on, I'll know that means no. Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? Oh, there's Tammy. Hi, Tammy.
Hi. The only comment I had is looking at the ones that you're talking about. Instance number. I'm sorry, can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So for instance, you're talking about shall in number 1. There's actually a number of places that says shall. So if the board is going to agree to change it, I just would like clarification if it's every shall in number 1 or just specific shalls, the same as number 4 has a couple shalls. So I just clarification, because this will have to be changed quickly for the adoption in the newspaper. And so if indeed it's successful, I just need a little bit more clarification if it's all shalls.
Yes, I was thinking of all shells in each of those numbers. So when I talked about the height, when it talked about the varied heights of buildings and garages, and the garages again, the preference is what's written here, but I'm just thinking about, we've seen developments evolve over time. Some of the types of developments that we're pursuing are really high end, and they have different types of arrangements. So I think if we just use the word should, it really helps give a little bit of flexibility that we're not painted into a corner because we didn't think about everything that was possible. I'm not trying to make it easier. That's not the intent here. The intent is to have less potential variances go to the ZBA. So, Donnie?
I guess I'd like to hear from Mike, being that he's done the ZBA.
He just had his hand up. Go ahead, Mike.
I have to kind of agree with John on the height restriction. We have height restrictions on all we deal with ZBA on all that when people want to put another building up and they can't exceed so much of the pitch and everything. There should be a parameter in there where you can't exceed a certain height, and they should have to come to the ZBA to validate if they want to get higher than that height. I agree with John 100% on the height one. The rest of them, I like the idea that you're making it compatible with the Gingiville on that last statement. On your last sentence, that puts those two in line. But I really agree 100% with John on the height restriction. I can't agree with that. Should be should. That should be remain a shall. That's my count.
And let me just say it a different way. By changing the word from shall to should, they're going to have to jump a high hurdle in order, if they wanted to go from 60 to 65 feet in this example, why they should be allowed to. It still should, the word should still means that this is what is recommended and required in order to get approval. And Dan, would there be any, would the planning commission would they be forced to approve something if someone came in with a 65-foot building and the word said should, or could they still say, hey, you need to go get a variance for the height? Does it paint them into a corner?
No, if you use the word should, it is the standard. All right. So the planning commission would have the authority to exceed that standard under your proposal. But it's still the standard of the ordinance would be 65 feet. So most buildings, if not all buildings, would be subject to that limit. But it's not, as Mike has pointed out and John's pointed out, it's not shall, it is should, and that there is some wiggle room for the planning commission.
I see Penny, and then I saw Gary turn his camera on, who's helped us with this. So I'll go to Penny, then I'll go to Gary if you wanted to give a comment, Gary.
So is the height restriction also keeping in mind with what our fire department can adequately assist if there's a fire over a certain height? And so I already know the answer to that question. I see 2 thumbs up from Mike Flood and John Steimel. And I think all of those suggestions have merit, Chris. But the one regarding the height restriction does cause concern for me as well.
Okay. Yes, and I would say one more thing before I throw it to Gary. As every development has to get approval from the fire department and the fire marshal, the planning commission, certainly I can't imagine any scenario where they're going to try to trump a recommendation from our fire marshal for something, for life safety things. So that none of this trumps any of our existing processes. It just potentially makes it where we've had some really interesting ideas come to us. Nothing's really come to, we have some things we know are coming in, but we don't want to lose something because of maybe what somebody might think is narrow language. But these are all really good comments, and that's why I wanted to have the discussion. Gary, I'm going to throw it to you if you wanted to speak. I assume you did because your camera's on.
Well, actually, I was just listening, but thank you for entertaining me. I have not heard of anybody propose anything higher than 5 stories yet. So the developers that I've spoken to, when you back in the density, you back into the parking, you back into the site coverage, that's all you're ever going to get to is 5 stories, all at 60 feet, probably.
Yes, Tammy.
I did want to point one thing out. If you're looking at the same page, although it's no change, if you look at letter C right above it, biz itself has no height limit. So this new height limit in multifamily was just created for multifamily, if that has any bearing on it, because the paragraph right above it says there's no height limit. There are some criteria based on the setback from residential, but the rest of the biz district does not have height restrictions with the exception of that paragraph. And the other thing I had to point out is under number 1, it not only talks about the height, but another shall is the maximum dimension of a building measured in any straight line shall be 200 feet. So it also talks about the length of a building.
Yeah. And we did have a potential building that was going to be longer than that. So what if we left the height alone? I have nothing. I don't have any like secret development that's coming. I wish I did. We know everything that's out there, as Gary mentioned and Tammy mentioned, that we've talked to, and I do want to note that I didn't want to change the word shall to should on that number 5, which says sites shall incorporate green spaces such as squares, linear open space that include benches, walking paths, shade trees, other amenities that create places for residents to enjoy the outdoors. So, I mean, there still are some shalls I want. I just wanted to, as building design changes over the years, and we've seen it, the type of construction, I didn't want to paint this into a quarter. I'm not pushing the height thing. So I think I would give on the height if you guys are open to having me change the should to, I think the building length should. I would like that to say should on the building length. And again, it's should. It's still, so the building still should be less than 200 feet. I think we should change should. I'd propose that we change should on 3, which speaks about the varied heights of the buildings. And then also 4, which is garages. And again, the standard still should be internal garages, garage doors not located in front yards. That's still the standard. But if someone comes up with something, I think it gives the authority to the planning commission if they look at a high quality development and say, yes, this generally meets the character of what we're trying to do in biz. So that's kind of what I was proposing. So would you be open to that? Is that a happy medium? John and Mike and Penny? I'd entertain
Nobody's speaking, so I can compromise on that. And I do appreciate, I can only speak for myself, I can't speak for the full ZBA, that it's nice when we can resolve these issues ahead of time instead of bringing them to the ZBA and we get it flooded with all these same variances.
Right.
So to speak for myself, I like the idea of trying to cut that down. And I like the idea too of giving the planning commission a little more leeway.
I'm not proposing any changes to Gingeville. So I'm gonna try, if it's okay. I normally don't, but because it's me making some recommendation, I'm gonna try a motion here. And I'm gonna try to make it as clear as possible. I'm gonna move to declare. Dan, can I declare the second reading held, but then with the small changes that I'm proposing?
Yes, and then, right, you're approving the second reading and adoption of the ordinance as discussed tonight.
Okay, so I would move to declare the second reading of PC 2019-51 text amendment is ordinance 78 articles 2, 3, and 364 to have been held on June 15, 2020 with the modifications as mentioned. And I will go through those, changing the word should, changing the word shall to should. I'll read the statement in item 30, in the Brown District 3401, section D1 would say building bulk and height. The maximum number of floors used as multiple family residential in a building shall be 5. We'll keep that shall. For a freestanding multiple family building, the maximum building height shall be 60 feet and 5 stories. We'll keep that shall. but then I would change the maximum dimension of a building measured at any straight line shall be 200 feet. I'd change that to should be 200 feet. And then the other two we mentioned was section D3, which says when more than one freestanding multiple family building is proposed as part of a unified development, the number of stories should be varied. And then lastly, D4, garages and carports should be oriented internally, and garage doors and carports should not be located in front yards. Garage doors should not face public streets unless they're located in a rear yard. So I changed those three shells to should. And then I'd add at the very end of this, section 34.04, modifications and standards, and this would be very similar to what's in the Gingiville plan, which I'm not proposing we change because it already has it. The planning commission shall have the authority to waive or modify the standards of section 34.03 based upon economic impact, quality of architectural design, and overall compatibility with the district. And I would email all of that in verbatim words to you, Clerk Schultz, so you have that in a clean copy.
And
So
I'll support that.
That's my motion. Penny, you support it? Okay.
Yes.
And I apologize for not, I know it's messy. It's so much harder when we're doing it remote like this. Any other comments or questions? Thoughts? Don't see any from the board. Entertain public comment at this time. Is there any public comment? You can unmute yourself. I hear none. And there is no emails to board@oriontownship.org. I will email this to you, Clerk Schultz, and I'll email it to the rest of the board as well, so you have it. Just so we may remain compliant with the Open Meetings Act. Please don't reply all. But actually, after we vote, it will already be decided. So, Clerk Schultz, would you please call the roll?
Bernie, then Dalrymple,
Yes.
yes. Flood, then Steinmal,
Yes.
Yes.
Barnett, then Schultz,
Yes.
yes. Steele,
Yes.
Thank you. That passes 7-0. Next item on tonight's agenda is the Orion Center audio-visual upgrades. As was mentioned, and I told you I would tell you about it later, this is the time we are moving. Our board meetings because our township boardroom being turned into a temporary sheriff's office substation. And there are some steel walls that are down there, and drywall was delivered on Friday. But we need to outfit the Orion Center to accommodate our needs for a board meeting room. So we received quotes, and I see our Parks and Recreation Director, Aaron Watley, has joined us. I know Dave Raftery, who is our Park Superintendent, who has also helped us immensely with our IT stuff, is online as well if we have questions. So anyway, we budgeted $35,000 for AV upgrades. And we know that there has been some discussion about this with Orion Neighborhood Television and the Orion Cable Commission Board. So I will throw that out there as an update, and I'll let Aaron and or Donnie jump in as they wanted, because I know the proposal tonight is to approve a not to exceed dollar amount. And I think we might have an update from the OCCCC meeting, if I'm correct. Aaron, go ahead, Aaron.
Yep, I'll just give a little update on the back end of it. So this was one of our millage projects that we asked the citizens for as a full renovation to the Orion Center AV. It actually worked out perfect with the moving of the township boardroom to the Orion Center. We were able to do both the two projects together and save some money as a whole. So Donnie probably has some updates on the Cable Commission on what they approved to contribute to the project. That was it on my end. So.
Thanks, Aaron.
And John's on the Cable Commission.
That's right. I don't mean to snub you, John. I just know Donnie and I.
And then we approved a grant up to $45,000, but that's strictly to ensure that we can publicly broadcast our township meetings at the Orion Center to where they can be on public television. So, there was still some numbers that Ian had to go and get to see exactly what it was that he had to upgrade. The current system that we had in our boardroom, and that he brought all that equipment over. Some of it's compatible, some of it's not. Need new cameras, need new cables. I think they need a new, diatribe. I'm not sure if that's the exact name. And so, but when he pieces it all together, I'm not sure at this point what the final number is going to be. But, by having the motion up to 35,000 and the grant at 45,000, I think that, it'll certainly be covered. Everything will be covered that's needed to upgrade the system so we can have our meetings at the Orion Center. I don't know, John, did I cover that correctly?
Yeah, for the most part, there are some pieces, because what they're working with our AV, our IT, new IT consultants.
Yes.
And there's some stuff in their proposal here that is not conducive to actually producing the broadcast that may need to be changed. So that was some of the iffy points we were talking about. Back at the Orient Center, it's called a TriCaster, and, it's how they can get it onto the ONTV itself, So there were some minor things that may have to be done that aren't part of a audio visual system at the meeting, but are part of producing the thing that may need to be changed. Vice versa, there may be some things, it's always kind of gray when we do these, that are part of you wanted to making the Orient Center more AV friendly for people holding meetings and presentations that aren't really part of, broadcasting the meetings. So, but I think we got that kind of straightened out and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure there's still, like I say, dotting a few more T's and cross a few more I's, which way we want to go. Some of it has to do with the type of cameras we're using and whether we're going to do it. Just so you know, temporarily, we're going to have to we have a portable, basically broadcasting piece of equipment that we're going to be using, but, we got to look at whether we can afford to put in something more permanent there. Because obviously if there's another event that we would normally cover with that portable unit on a night we have a meeting, then you got a conflict, and what do you do? So, and that's the unit they take out into the field and do like the football game, all the sports games and different events. So, anyway, that's a temporary solution, but that might be part of what we're talking about here is what's the more permanent solution for the Orion Center so we can hold meetings there.
Go ahead, Penny.
So if I'm understanding Donnie correctly, they're approved up to $45,000 for the OCCCC?
Yes, the grant is, but
And if it's a reimbursement grant, shouldn't we also follow suit up to $45,000 and make the necessary budget adjustments on the motion?
no, because the Parks and Rec has already budgeted 30,000, or is it 35? What's on the memo?
35.
35, and the 45,000 is the extras that aren't going to be covered with the 35,000. So it's kind of like a, so the motion is correct for the Parks and Rec, and what the OCCCC has granted was a grant for 45,000 because there's more equipment that has to be purchased other than just the upgrades for the Parks and Rec. So, but they don't have a final cost yet.
But the equipment will belong to the township, and don't we pay for it first and get reimbursed? No. And Aaron budgeted $35,000, but he's showing 41. So I'm thinking we still have to do a budget adjustment.
No, jump in there, Aaron, because we think it's actually going to be much less with the annual commission participation.
Yeah, our cost was lower than, we believe it to be lower than 35,000, but on TV's portion of cameras, microphones, wiring, cabling will also assist us with our events and different things like that. So their 45,000 was just extra above and beyond to make sure the numbers are covered. So, I wouldn't recommend doing a budget adjustment or anything like that. Just moving forward with the contract as is. Dave and, Ian from On TV and Marco, they've been working hand in hand diligently for the past 3 weeks to make sure all needs are addressed on both sides. Orion Center with banquets, weddings, things like that, and to also facilitate, compliant, meetings for ZBA, planning and township as well. So.
And we've been working hand in hand with Ian and Dave, our Dave, Irish Dave. So we think we'll be able to keep that number under what Aaron budgeted, and obviously still pay for what's ours, what's separate from what's required to publish and broadcast our meetings. And this will be used beyond, just the time we're going to be using the room there as a board meeting, space. And the other thing I wanted to say, in case you're asking, and I didn't cover it in my opening, and I meant to, but Marco is similar to Cunningham Limp. They're a consultant. They go out and get competitive bids. We review them. Ian has been actively involved in that process. As has Dave and Aaron. So they go out to multiple vendors, and obviously in this case, it's got to match up with what OMTV already is using. And I think if you look at the quote, you'll see Crestron, that's a brand. We are matching up to some things as well. So, any other questions or comments? I think to get to your point, Penny, Aaron, is there an idea that because after the Cable Commission met after the memo was published in our board book and offered, I think, some additional funding than what we all, is there a not to exceed price that you're comfortable with for the purpose of our motion tonight, Aaron?
Well, I mean, not to exceed the 35,000 that we budgeted. I fully anticipate we'll be under that. But just to make sure we don't, we're very time constrained. We have to have everything set before the July board meeting. So, worst case scenario, we're at 35,000, but I believe we'll be lower. And that way it just allows us the flexibility to move forward in a timely manner to get this done.
So Penny, if you're
responsible,
if you're looking to use that, and then 35,000 is what was budgeted. So we could do a not to exceed 35,000. And then we won't need to make a budget adjustment. And then hopefully next month, Aaron will tell us the good news as to how much he spent. Well, we'll know because we'll see the board bill. So 35,000 was budgeted. And again, so we didn't mean to confuse this, but ONTV's partnership is helping us keep it on budget or under budget from what Aaron originally budgeted for the upgrades. So I entertain a motion if there is one. Annie?
I'd make a motion to authorize Marco to complete the Orient Center AV upgrade for a total not to exceed 35,000, with the Cable Commission paying the difference.
Support.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? I see no hands raised. Any public comment? Go ahead and unmute yourself, please, if you'd like to give a comment. Okay, I don't see any chats and I don't see any emails, so we'll close public comment. Thanks to everybody involved, Ian and Dave and Aaron from our team and the Cable Commission for their support. It's a great partnership. So, Clerk Schultz, would you please call the roll?
Dalrymple, then Flood,
Yes.
Yes.
Simon, then Barnett,
Yes.
Yes.
Schultz, yes, Steele, then Bernie,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that passes. Next item, Aaron, you're here. Perfect. It's the Civic Center Playground. I'm gonna just turn this over to you, Aaron.
Yep, so this was also one of the projects that we asked our residents for when we went out for the millage to update some playgrounds. So Civic Center playground is in desperate need of repair, and you can see from the design in your board packets that it's fully accessible, wheelchair accessible, ADA accessible. It's a great design. Our main focus for this playground was to keep it between 2 and 5 years. That's what we heard from our residents. The one at Friendship Park is obviously more focused towards the 5 to 12 age groups, and just they're running, having fun. It's kind of a, you know, a more, I guess, more skilled playground as opposed to the Civic Center. So we decided to keep this one from 2 to 5. Good developmental skills, and so you can see the new renderings came out, and it's more of a natural color, keeping consistent with our other playgrounds, greens, browns, and things like that. So the cost came in at about $121,000. Demo will be done in-house with our staff. So we'll be keeping the most northern swing bay section because those are in really good shape. And it will also isolate the swing bays away from the new playground. So we won't have the 2 or 3 year old kids that'll go wandering off from their mom or dad or grandparents, and we'll go into the swing area. So
There's the colors. I think if my screen's still sharing properly.
perfect.
So, okay, thank you, Aaron. There's some pictures of it. Sorry, hopefully it catches up there. Computer's a little slow here. All right, are there any questions, comments, or I'd entertain a motion from the board? Again, this is a budgeted expense. You can see in the packet that it was, it actually came in a little bit under budget, from what we budgeted when we first talked about this. Yes, go ahead, John.
I just have a comment. It's kind of like even now thinking like the palace. I can remember when the palace was built. It doesn't seem that old to me, and now they're tearing it down. I was also here when we built this particular playground. We replaced the one that was there, and you wouldn't believe how much debate there was to get the green dragon slide on this current playground, you know, back then. So it's that's another reason I know I've been here too long. I'm starting to see this stuff come around again. It's like, God, didn't we just redo that playground? And yet it's been probably 20 years close to it. But anyway, yeah, it's looks good, you know. A lot of these playgrounds, I will say too, Aaron, overall, you know, there's been nice upgrades across the board on this stuff. So.
Okay, Aaron has his hand up. I'm gonna go to Aaron first, and then I will go back to the board members. Aaron?
That green area with the canopy by the slide right there, that is a pour in place rubber surfacing material. I just wanted to throw that out there. So we'll have a nice sidewalk that'll stroll up to it. It'll be a nice entry point for the playground. That's it.
Okay, thank you. I saw Donnie's hand and Brian's hand up.
I'd like to make a motion if that's okay, to authorize Miracle Midwest to complete the Civic Center playground renovation for a total not to exceed $121,346. And I have a quick comment too.
Go ahead. Supported by Bernie. Go ahead with your comment.
Oh, it's my window view, that playground, and it's used every single day. So, I think it'll get some good use out of it, and it'll look better than the purple. So thanks, Aaron.
Okay, Brian, you had your hand up too?
I was just gonna make a motion, so.
Okay. Julia?
How long will it take from demolition to when the new playground will be complete and ready to play again?
So with everything going on, there's about an 8-week lead time from when we authorize the contract, which will be probably about tomorrow. They'll be putting up fencing most likely next week in fencing off the area, and then we will start demoing the existing playground. So we might get a few complaints, but with the number of staff we have, it's gonna take some time to get a demo. So probably about 10 to 11 weeks in that area.
Okay. Mike.
Yeah, I want to agree with John and Donnie and everyone else. I really appreciate Aaron keeping that to that young age group. Because all the years have been over there at Township Hall, that's who's over there, the young families and the little kids. And we got plenty of other parks for the bigger ones. So good concept. Good job. Thank you.
All right. Any other board comments? We will go to public comment. Is there any public comment on this? Just wait a moment. There is nothing in the chat. Refresh the email. There's no email on comments on this. Again, board, BOARD at orienttownship.org if you want to give us comment. I would entertain a roll call vote at this time, please, Clerk Schultz.
Barnett and Schultz,
Yes.
yes. Steele and Bernie,
Yes.
Yes.
Dalrymple and Flood,
Yes.
Yes.
Simul.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 7-0. We had a couple items brought down. We have, we have one more item. One item is brought down, which was Township Policies. This is item 8E. And this was previously, sorry, this is item 9E. This was previously item 8E. And if I can get the right memo up here. Okay, so there's 3 policies tonight for review and approval. I'm planning on bringing additional policies to the board as we go. Tonight in front of the board is the internal financial report to Townships directors, the interfund payment process, and the general journal entry process. The purpose of these policies is to increase internal communication among departments, provide clear information to the Township Board, and provide increased transparency to our residents. The policies were developed with the assistance of the budget director and the township attorney, and was reviewed by and discussed with the township's auditor, Plant Moran. So again, there are 3 for discussion and consideration tonight. And I know, John, you brought this down. I think it was you, John, so I would throw it to you first, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I guess the first thing is, you got to remember, you guys do this under, you know what you're thinking about and stuff like that. But from this wording, I'm not really sure what the heck I'm agreeing to be honest with you. I mean, it even starts with you title this as policies, but then you list it as standard operating procedures and stuff like that. And I'm not really sure what I'm saying that we're doing. It almost feels like, to me, like a lot of these reports and stuff used to be generated out of the clerk's office. And then it seems like we spent a lot of money to switch to BS&A, and there was a lot of heartache and as we moved and skirmishes along the way about that so that people could get their information, you know, had the access to it, which they have access to all this information supposedly. And then, of course, even then we said, well, that wasn't working out. So now we're going to hire a budget director who's going to do a lot of this stuff. And now it seems like we've gone full circle. We're going back to the way it was after spending all kinds of money and hiring extra people to do this. So I'm just a little confused what the heck we're supposed to be agreeing to here.
Perfect.
To be honest with you. And if it's, like I said, isn't this all stuff that the budget director was supposed to do anyway to help the individual directors, you know, to get their information? But So that's kind of why I pulled it down. I'm just confused. I don't really understand.
Good questions, John. So maybe we'll do this. I'll walk through each one of them and explain the purpose and why we're doing them. So the first is the here. Okay. The first is the internal financial reports to township directors. And I think you're onto something, John. We're trying to actually put lots of things in writing, lots of procedures, policies, and practices in writing, so that when we do have people that are either out of the office, on vacation, leave our employment, that we have a guide map as to who does what and why. And you know, kind of letting everyone look under the hood a little bit. That we don't have, that doesn't really totally exist here right now. I did send you a kind of an email that exchanged with Plant Moran, so you could see some of their feedback, and their overall comments were, and I'll just read it before I go through the individual policies. But they said, overall, from an audit standpoint, we always welcome processes that provide for additional levels of review, more transparency, and more communication across departments. That has to be balanced against efficiency. Many of our clients consider process changes from a cost benefits standpoint as well. These considerations and the resulting conclusions are those of management and your governing body. That's why we're discussing it tonight. We bring it to the governing body. Some of these are within the scope of my authority, I believe, but I want the board to be aware of what we're working on. So first and foremost, we'll talk about, or not foremost, but first we'll talk about the internal financial report to directors. There's been some discussion about the reports that are prepared for the board and the financial reports, that is, and we've asked for access to the directors. We meet every Tuesday. Actually, during COVID, we met every single day. We've been meeting twice a week. Now we meet, we're back to once a week now that we're back open and live in person here. But it's for better communication. There's been frustration, there's been confusion, there's been a lot of discussion. And what I can see from my position and my seat is, if the information that the board is getting is shared with the directors, and that's what this policy is for, John, it will help all of the directors. Sometimes funds are moved after the fact, when things are being reconciled and things hit different directors' budgets, sometimes after the fact. And so if there are reports that are being, again, provided to the board, we want the directors to have them. And we have made the request. The request has been made from the budget director, actually, to the clerk and the clerk's office to get copies of the reports that are provided to the board. Originally, it was asked for access to the board book that the board sees. And then the comment came back that because there are attorney opinions that, you know, that directors shouldn't get access to the board book. And because we have these very robust systems, you can pull a report 100 different ways. I'm not exaggerating. So simply, we want the information that's being shared with the board to be shared with all the directors. And to put that in writing instead of just asking it to be done, we thought is a good practice. As you know from previous discussions, a lot of the frustration over the years has been from lack of communication. So I woke up and had an aha moment and said, what if we just put all these things in writing, and then there is something we can point to and say, this is what we're expecting each person to do. And all three of these have to do with sharing information and better communication. I absolutely would agree with you to that point. So that's what this one's about. I'd entertain, and you can see there that it says majority of the expenditures are reviewed and approved by department directors. There are many instances where an invoice is only reviewed by one department. So we want to make sure that you know, we're having more sets of eyes, and this is again, we took Plant Moran, looked at all three of these. They gave us some input, which we took on all three, and we incorporated their input into what's in front of you tonight. So let's talk just about this one first, and then we'll move to the next one. Are there any comments or questions on this one? Okay, John, go ahead.
Well, okay, so you talk about there's reports that are coming to the board that don't go to directors. What ones are you talking about? I guess I'm not aware of which ones that they can't see or get the same information.
Yeah, so I know Ashley is on. Ashley, are there specifics that you can share?
Yeah.
We can hear you. Oh, not great, Ashley. Not great. I know she had something else that was a conflict, so I told her that we would have her. Okay. I think she's gonna call in. Couldn't hear that. Has to do with the financial reports, John.
Yeah, which ones? Like here you talk about the check run. Okay.
Check
The check run, it's a check run. It's a bunch of check, it's a check ledger, right? I don't, the tough part about that's a check. I don't see how, okay, you want to see it, but it's not like what's charged to each department gets a separate check all the time. I mean, some of them are, but a lot of them aren't. You'll write one check to a place that's actually a whole bunch of things, and it's part of, that's why it takes a little while to keep track of, properly distribute that. Well, $2,000 of this particular check was for this, and $3,000 was for that, and it might hit multiple departments. It might be multiple subparts of one department. Like I said, sometimes it is. This only hits one department, so I'm not quite sure what that. And then, like I said, that I thought that was already part of the board book anyway. So I guess I just don't. I'm just confused. I'm still confused of what we're talking about for sure. The details, and are we, like I said, going full circle back to what we were doing before? And I don't know.
So let me just say it a different way. And Donnie, I see your hand. We want to make sure that the budget director and the department heads see all the information that the board sees. I don't know if someone can tell me a downside to that, I'd love to hear it. It's better transparency. It's better understanding of what's going on. That's it in a nutshell. Donnie, you had your hand up?
I was gonna give John something more specific.
Go ahead.
And so, for instance, on our board book, as of today, if you look at approval of bills on page 15, and you go to, and you see on page 15, starting with the invoices and how it's broken down, and then you go to the next page and you see how it's broken by what was paid by EFT, what was paid by ACH, what was paid by a paper check. And then you go to the next page and it goes down and it talks about which department got charged what. So OHM sends us a bill. It might filter across 5 or 6 departments because they do a lot of engineering for a lot of different departments in the township. And it'll break it down which costs were to them. So I don't mean to be elementary, but for instance, our budget director doesn't see these pages of reports, which to me is, it's a handicap because I'll say, hey, Ashley, OHM charged a bill for Baldwin, and it seems to me that's a CIA expense versus a Baldwin corridor, RCO expense for the expansion of the road. And she says, well, I haven't seen that, how it's broken down. Yes, she can go into the BSNA system and she can scroll down backwards, but if she has the report of the same report that we're looking at, it just gives her the knowledge and the wherewithal to make it a lot easier to figure out what I'm talking about or how it's broken down to see if it might be categorized in a general ledger number that's incorrect, that it should go under to capital versus CIA. So just that alone, she doesn't have access to our board book. She only has access to the public board book, which doesn't include all of these all of the time, because sometimes these come after it's been published. So that's just something as elementary as that.
And I know Ashley is on the phone if we need to ask her questions.
Chris, I
Go
got
ahead.
a couple things. This information does not come to the board after it's published. I would say 99% of the time or better, Tanda provides all that information to the board and it's in the board book. Occasionally there will be a cover memo that's needed to have a revision, but this is always in the board book. And what happens is some of it is not in the public board packet. And that's where I think the disconnect is. It used to be provided to all the directors, but because we went with BS&A, we were under the operations that the directors would be running their own reports. They would be doing their own work, but they do have access to all this information. They're just not compiling it. So this puts all of it that's been compiled already by my department at their hands, at their fingertips, without them having to do the work. And I don't think it's a problem providing it. It was a simple email from Tandem on Thursday before Jill published the board book to send it off to the directors. It's that simple. This is a pretty easy process. But I think what would be helpful is if the directors did get in the habit of running some of these reports and reviewing them. They're all available on the systems, but it is a time-consuming process to make sure you're getting all the information as Donnie explained.
And the directors.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Ashley. Go ahead,
I was
Ashley.
going to say, this is Ashley too, if my name doesn't show up on the screen. And I completely agree with what Penny and Donnie said. The biggest thing with the BS&A system is, as Penny mentioned, it's super time consuming to run the reports, which isn't an issue at all. It's just, you can run the same report 100 different ways. So specifically, I know in my case, when people from the board are coming to me with questions, and I try to run the report, I might pull it in a completely different way and not see it in the same way that the board's seeing it, and the board's phrasing their questions in specific ways. The second thing is with the BS&A system, as Donnie had mentioned, if a bill comes in for, say, OHM or the Kelly firm, or a bill that touches multiple departments, it only has to be approved by one director. So for instance, like if we received a bill from BS&A and Penny approves it and pushes it through, but it affects my department, I wouldn't necessarily see that unless I'm seeing it on that AP check register report. So again, I can see it in the budget, but you have to go back and actually physically be looking for it. So if those same reports could be provided, it would just hold the directors more accountable for the invoices that are hitting their departments that may not necessarily cross their desk.
Yeah, and and I'll just circle back and just say, this is something that's been a source of a little bit of frustration, not great frustration, but by most, if not all of the directors over time. And I think it's a really easy fix. And it helps transparency, double checking, and then just having some of our processes in writing. And I think that's what we're seeing, where we have an opportunity to get better. And I'll be the most critical on myself, that, I've been here almost 8 years and there's still lots of things we need to work on. It's not for lack of trying, but again, I think that if you have something written and everyone understands what's expected, it makes it a lot easier and less frustrating for everyone. That's the goal of all three of these, to be straight with you. So, any other questions or comments on this? Yep.
Yeah, comments. Even the auditors are saying you have to get this in place for all the other procedures that affect finances. And that would be for cash receipting and for manual entries on cash receipting, and also for what's being done with the budget and anything that's touched by a finance. It needs to have a policy in place so that we all know how things are being processed. And I look forward to getting those before the board sooner than later.
Yes. I agree. We will be bringing policies and procedures to the board on a regular basis. Any other comments or questions from the board, or would entertain a motion to adopt this policy that's in front of us? And I'm not trying to trick anyone with the word policy or procedure. It's basically having something that this has been the form that started a couple years ago, I believe. And so we're trying to put it in the same format. So I look at these as a policy the format that we used. I think actually when Chief Duke came, this was the format that he used, he brought from Sterling Heights. So that was called standard operating procedure, but we can change the name if we want. But it's meant to not be confusing. It's meant to be as straightforward as possible. So any comments, questions on this, or a motion to adopt this one? Mike?
I'll make a comment, then I'd like to make a motion. And I'm a firm believer in anything that will help inform the general public, the township board, anyone, that we need clarification and policies on the way to go. That way, like Penny said, everyone has a clear understanding of exactly how the process works. And I know there's been a lot of times I've asked some questions and I have to go like to 5 different people to get the answer to one question, because everyone has their specific duties they're doing. And I appreciate the help. But if we can streamline things and make it a lot easier internally, plus for the general public, for transparency, I'm all in favor of that. With that said, I'll make a motion to adopt the internal financial reports to Township Directors Policy, Interfund Payment Process Policy, and the General Fund. I think that's a G, is that GI and JE?
Okay. I was going to just do the first one, Mike, because we haven't talked about the other.
Okay. I'm sorry. Well, you got me way ahead of the game here.
I guess your motion, you can make whatever you want, but we didn't get.
I'll make the motion for everything, and if you guys don't like it, you can vote it down.
All right. Okay.
Entry process policy and published to the employees resources directory.
Okay. Is there support? Okay. Supported by Steele. We will circle back then.
And I'm sorry.
ahead.
And on one of the policies, Chris, I would like to make a slight change, but it's the third one, so I'll just wait till we get there.
Okay, let's talk about the interfund payment process. And by the way, Mike, I hope you don't mind if I say this, but some of these policies came from questions and ideas that you have brought to me, Mike Flood, as a board member looking for additional information. So these aren't all my original ideas, and this is a good example of that. This is the interfund payment process. Again, I hope you don't mind that I called you out on that, or I didn't call you out, but this has to do. This one has to. This one has to.
Chris, I've been frustrated for a long time on finding where's the money in this township, and that's the trustee's job. Thank you.
Yeah. So the interfund payment process. And we did tweak this. This was the one that I would say, well, this and the next one was the one that Plant Moran had the most ideas for us to tweak from my original concept. But basically, I'll just use an example. Mike Flood, we're supposed to make a CIA payment from the CIA every year on the interest in May. Actually the bylaws say the 1st of May, so it's the first board meeting. So Mike has asked religiously, how come he doesn't see that payment that's been made? And so, matter of fact, I did a little bit of research, and there's actually some of the Michigan compiled laws as it relates to the role of my role, the supervisor, talks about I actually am over the interfund payment process. And so basically what this would do in that example that I just gave, we would see on the board book and the board bills a payment made from the one account, the CIA, to the other account where the loan is. And then, we could see forever for the history of the world that payment has been made. And, that's how this discussion, frankly, this is how this discussion started. One of the things that Plant Moran offered, they said, maybe don't want to do every interfund transfer because some of them are okay by being done just by a journal entry, which is how most of these have been done in the past. And so we tweaked it so that we didn't make it onerous on the clerk's office, so that it's not every interfund transfer, but the ones that directly involve an organized board. So the Corridor Improvement Authority, Safety Path, etc. Those payments should be run through the accounts payable system in BS&A. Then they will be in the bill run. They'll be the board will be able to see them in the board book. And then I can answer Mike's question when he calls me every May and says, how come we didn't make the payment? And say, no, and hopefully he won't ask me that question because he'll be able to look up and see. So that's in general what this covers. And there's a step-by-step process. And so I'll entertain questions or comments on this one. Okay, John, go ahead, John.
Again, still not 100% clear to me, and that's part of the problem. And I would also caution everybody that even calling this a policy, standard operating procedure, whatever, at our level isn't really the way to go. That's I don't mind. I think it's a good idea for internally you guys to develop procedures to make sure things are happening, but now you've taken it all the way up to the board. It's something the board is dictating. That's like number one. You're starting to micromanage stuff you don't understand. And sorry, I don't understand. Maybe everybody else gets it. And like I said, I don't know if that's what you really want to do. And like I said, it really should be part of the evaluation then that there are procedures and stuff in place that are making this stuff happen. But I don't know. So anyway, that's one thing I'm just cautious, and the way it's kind of getting thrown out here, I don't think it's really been thought out from the big picture. And so that's just where I'm at.
Penny?
I think it's because a lot of people don't understand how to use BS&A. So they're trying to make sure that it's streamlined so that everybody gets to the same end result. I know BS&A is very cumbersome. You know, like you've heard people say, you can find 100 ways to get to the answer, 100 reports, how to run it, but that's the way the BS&A programs are designed.
Yeah, so I don't agree with that. I would just say that I think for the purposes of so first of all, to your point, John, I do believe the way I read the law that it is within my authority to create these policies without the board weighing in on them. However, I think it's important, as some of the frustration that's come through the years has come to me directly from some of you and not being able to see things, whether or not it's because you don't clearly know how to use BS&A or what. I'm not going to opine on that. I'm just going to say that I thought it at least merited a discussion. I did ask Donnie and Penny via email last week if they wanted it. Originally, it was on pending. If we wanted to move it to consent, we could. And I think Penny or Donnie moved it to consent. So I assumed that they were okay with it. So there is a certain level of this discussion that happens internal for sure. But some of these things that directly impact the board and some of the questions and frustration that has been brought to me by some of you over the years, I thought it at least merited a discussion to at least let you know we're doing it and what we're working on. And I don't intend this to be the last one either. There's, we talked about one earlier that we needed to probably bring back to the board. And I'd love for you to weigh in if you so choose, or at least know that we're doing these things. So I think it's a good management thing, and I work for you Monday through Friday during the week. I'm a member of the board, but I also take direction from the board, and that's why I think some of this stuff is important to bring to the board. Mike.
I know at budget time, many of us have asked, well, how's the Corridor Improvement Authority doing? Well, it's doing okay. I want to see numbers. And where I got involved in this is, I know in another year, I think the 5-year interest rate is done, and we got to start paying on the principal on that loan. Now, can anyone tell me right now, this minute, and I asked Platt Moran this, and I'm a little upset with Platt Moran. I wanted this put into an amortized schedule. They're going to have to do it here when we start paying that principal, just like they do the water and sewer on the bonds and on the interest. When you come to the board and say, board, we need $800,000 to make our payment because we don't have that kind of money coming in yet. I don't want to find that out the day that bill is due on June 1st. I want to know that a couple of years ahead of time so I can plan how I'm going to do these capital projects. Also, that for years, the safety path, we have had no idea where we're at with that safety path fund. We've got 20 projects which spread out for 4, 5, 10 years. And no one, until recently, until we got this director on board and working with Penny's office too, this is when you have to communicate. We have great workers down there. They know what they're doing. But as a township board member, I gotta know, show me the damn money. Plain and simple. And if I was a trustee, if I can't say that or try to find that, then I don't belong in this job. So I fully support these policies on getting us all on the same page. We're not doing this for us employees. We're doing it for the township resident and the taxpayer. So at tax time, when they come up and say, hey, flood, how come you let this happen? I said, well, I didn't know. Well, I'm not going to give that kind of answer. Thank you.
Yep, go ahead, Penny.
So Chris, when will we see the processes, the policies for cash receipts and disbursements, and then also the budget process for making the budget adjustments, and then the cash flow management too? I'd like to see a policy on that as well.
Yeah, so send me an email with what you're looking for, and that will help prioritize. So why don't you send those to me in email, and
Plant Moran did send that information requesting that. That since the township recently changed over to BSNA, we think it makes sense to consider what other policies should be created, reviewed, or updated to reflect the new systems in place and ensure the policies are current. But I think that's anything that's touched by the financials.
Yes. Again, so I see that, but they just said cash receipts. So yeah, if you send me whatever policies you want to be considered, for sure. It's really important that we're on the same page and we communicate clearly. To me, that's what this all boils down to. There's no secrets. We shouldn't have to have people that work here feel like in order to get the information they need, they have to FOIA a different department. And sometimes it can feel that way. So we really just want to have good, clear communication. We want everyone to understand what's expected. And that's it. That's it. There's no names being named. It's just let's help get on the same page. And honestly, when you don't have it in writing, how can you anticipate everyone's going to understand what their role or responsibility is? That's you can make any kind of analogy you wanted, but tell a football wide receiver to run an end run, and they're going to do it 10 different ways. So if you have it clearly defined, that's what we're looking to do here. Yes, Julie, I saw your hand up.
So everyone keeps saying that there's 100 different ways to get the information. Is anyone creating a guide or a way to tell people how to get, so you're all looking at the same report at the same time? I mean, I heard someone say every director should be doing it on their own. If they're not doing it on their own, are we putting this together to assist them so they can compare notes? Like, what's the end game that we want the directors to be doing with this information?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Like for the policy we're talking about right now, interfund transfers, this has more to do with probably more to do with the board and the boards of these committees. We're working on getting a handle, as was mentioned by Mike. We have all these safety path projects. We have a volunteer board, and we have a plan in place to track the projects we've already approved. As it relates to the budget reports and things like that, we expect the directors to be reviewing these things to make sure that if something got coded on the back end to the wrong account or a different part of their budget than was originally allocated, it's just a double check. It's a way to double check. But for the budget and the county controller, they need to see, it's a good way to see, the back and forth information to make sure that there's clear understanding. So let's talk for a minute about, or however long you want, about the last one. I'll put it on the screen, and this is the one that Donnie, I think you wanted to make a tweak to. So we would have to ask Mike if he would be agreeable to amending his motion. So basically this one, am I sharing my screen with you all or not? I don't think I am. Hold on. Did that work? Okay. So I think it'd be best to have, Penny or Ashley describe this. Ashley, are you still on the phone? Ashley?
Chris, what are you looking for?
Well, I can go through it, but I was trying to see if she was still on the phone. All right. Basically.
Barb's also on the line too, if you want to have her weigh in.
Okay. I didn't.
And general ledger is the function of the clerk's office, and Barb is on the line. She can go over it with you.
Okay, good. Yeah. So basically.
Oh, Chris, I'm sorry. My computer wouldn't unmute, but I am here as well. But Barb can go ahead.
Yeah, no problem. And basically, it's any non-recurring journal entries that are in the so what that means is when there's a it's the back end part of the financial process. They need to have documentation. We need to have clear understanding of what they were, supporting documentation, understanding so a director can see, hey, there was a $3,000 adjustment to this line item in my budget. And then they can see the journal entry. We need to make sure that they're supporting calculations, spreadsheets, all the information that was used to make that determination, because sometimes the director or the department head that's responsible for that budget hasn't been privy to the journal entry. So it's about, again, better communication, clearing up confusion, and making sure that and probably maybe all of them are accurate for why they were moved, but sometimes the director puts funds, allocates a certain expense to a specific part of their budget for a specific reason. And then someone makes a determination later that it should have actually gone someplace else. But we need to make sure that if that happens, there's it's clearly defined in the system. The system is set up to do this. And so we want to make sure that we do that is a good way to say that. And I entertain comments or questions or better explanation of that from Ashley or Barb. Okay.
I think Chris, can you guys hear me?
Go ahead. Yes.
This is Ashley still. I think you did a really good job of explaining it. And just having the procedure or the guidelines in writing. I think I know that's something that Penny is a big believer in, Donnie and Chris and the rest of the board, I believe. So just making sure that, again, the communication is pretty streamlined with the rest of the directors and that they can see when funds are moved from account to account.
And I thought Barb was on there too. I was hoping she would weigh in. But a couple of things that they have to look at too is that the reoccurring journal entries, that's something that's automatically done. But it's a non-reoccurring corrective journal entries that we would want to have that backup information. And the coming from the directors, it sort of has flowed the one way, and it needs to flow from the directors down as well. And when the directors are making their approvals on their AP, or they're asking us to make certain payments, they need to be real careful as they're entering their GL numbers so that it doesn't have to have a corrective journal entry. And the other thing, as Plant Moran, they did review that with us, but we want to make sure that we have all the information we need from the directors as well. So I think it goes both ways. If they want us to change something, we will change it. Some of the year-end journal entries, they're just going to automatically have to happen, and we'll have engagement with the directors as well. Say, for example, you buy an item, but you're not expensing it in that same year, but you have to correct it back to that year, like 2019, for example. Plant Moran did look at this. I think it's a good idea to have it in writing, but I would like to see from our department, and I'm glad that this is bringing to the board to take a look at it, but the directors as well, that they have the responsibility to get that information to us too. That it's not just one department or one person making the decision.
Yeah, and I agree, Penny, too, with everything you're saying. I think this is a really good opportunity for all of the directors. And a lot of the directors are self-admitting that, hey, I don't know where, the best account for this expense. So sometimes they'll pick what they think is the best, and it may not be the best account. And so if we can just offer additional training instead of just having it moved on the back end, I think it's ultimately going to make Barb's job a lot easier because she's not going to have as many expenses to fix going forward. So I think this is a really good policy.
Great, Penny, or Donnie, you had your hand up.
Just real quick on page 76. It's 3 procedures and responsibilities, 3, 4. And it says a check should be cut from the pooled cash account and the township clerk and the treasurer should review and sign the check. I would just like to add check, ACH and EFT because you would have the automatic payment as well too.
Okay.
Donnie, are you talking about which policy? The transfers between funds?
Interfund last policy
process.
The general.
Come again? I didn't hear you. Which one, Donnie?
Interfund payment process.
Right, interfund payment process, and where are you changing it?
3, number 3, which is procedures and responsibilities, 3-4. And it says a check should be cut, and it's on page 76 in the board book.
And you're changing it to?
Check, comma, EFT, comma, ACH.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, so again, all this is to, go ahead, Mike.
I'll amend my motion to reflect that, change you just made.
And then Donnie, do you amend your support?
Yes, thanks, Mike.
All right, we're attempting to communicate better and be more transparent. That's the purpose of all these. If it wasn't clear, we have opportunity for improvement in all areas, and those 2 areas included. So, there will be more of these. There's if you have ideas, let us know. The nice thing is, again, when it's in, the board speaks to their motions, and many of us have heard that said, and we all agree with that. But when it's in black and white, it's easy to make sure that people understand what's expected. And I'm not saying that people don't. I'm just saying it'll be a lot clearer. A good, and one of my old bosses used to tell me all the time, a good understanding makes for a lasting relationship. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to have a good understanding amongst everyone. And so I appreciate the comments, the input, and there will be more to come on this. John, you had your hand up. I'll go back to you.
Did I?
I thought you did. I'm sorry.
I don't know. Like I said, I'm still just the overall, I think we're going about it the wrong way, but.
How would you like to
That's me.
go about it, John? I'm interested. I mean, I'm open to ideas and suggestions.
Again, when you're talking about something coming from the board, which is what this is going to be, board actions, it should be more of a general policy of what we're looking for, not down to the detail, how we think it should get done. So, you know, some of the things you talked about, well, you know, and it really should just get down to then evaluating people, which we don't do, that they're not doing their job. I mean, we should, as trustees, be able to go to either a director or a budget director, either one, a director of any department or a budget, and talk to them about their funds and stuff. And if they can't answer our questions, that's really a problem there.
Right.
I don't know. So I don't think you're solving that problem. You're just creating this bureaucracy stuff. And then, of course, technically, the policy should be such that there should be consequences when you violate them. You know, so that's just in general. I'm not necessarily in favor of getting to this detail in this way of what the board should be doing. And of course, like I said, you creating a policy, and that's kind of the problem with some of our policies anyway. What happens when people don't follow them anyway? So.
Well, I mean, I'll tell you that when these are adopted, should they be adopted, they'll be explained to the staff, and that's what is expected of all the directors. There's nothing that you said that I disagree with the exception of that I don't think that the board should know, you know, be involved and or know about it to the level of detail. I think that because there's been a lot of discussion, a lot of money spent, to get us to this point, and software upgrades and things. I do think that, and frankly, a couple of these items have come to me from board members. I think it's of interest to you. So, if you're saying that going forward, you'd just rather have me just internally put policies in place, I'm happy to do that. So, yes, Penny?
I want policies to come from the board, especially if they're affecting my department. And also, Chris, do you know how much we spent on BSNA for training and the cost for that software upgrades? Because it's pretty expensive.
Yeah, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yep, I think it's over $250,000 to put in BSNA, and there's been extensive training throughout all departments. And it's a difficult, we have a couple of experts here, and I think that's where the problem lies.
Okay, is there any other comments or questions on this or public comment? I'm gonna go to, is there any public comment on this? There's no chat bubbles. There's no emails. I don't hear anyone unmuting. So it was moved by Flood, supported by Steele, to adopt all three policies with the change to the interfund transfer policy to say check, EFT, and ACH on page 76 of our board book. Excuse me. Would you please call the roll, Ms. Schultz?
Bernie, then Dalrymple,
Yes.
Yes.
Flood, then Stimo,
Yes.
No.
Barnett,
Yes.
Schultz, and Steele, yes.
Yes.
Okay, that passes 6-1. You want to provide input as we go forward on other procedures or policies?
Chris, I sent 4 to you and copied the board on those as well.
Okay.
I just sent an email.
Okay, I'm not in that email because I'm trying to fly a spaceship, it feels like here. So, okay, next item on tonight's agenda is reports, I think. Is that that's the only other thing that got moved on, right? Am I missing anything? Yeah, reports. We have police and fire report tonight, as we always do. Entertain a motion to receive and file.
So moved.
Support.
Moved by Bernie, supported by Stimo. All in favor? Aye. Or thumbs
Aye.
up? Anyone opposed? That passes 7-0. That brings us to public comment. This is a second chance to give public comment, or second. I don't know. You got lots of chances. Anybody want to give public comment? Go ahead and unmute yourself if you're on the line. James Phillips. Hi, Jim.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
Good. Thank you for joining us.
Good. I wanted to thank the township staff for our little water line project over on Parkview. Donnie, Jeff Stout, Bill over at the DPW, and the guys working in the field went above and beyond in terms of timeliness, getting things done for us. And just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for your help.
Thank you, Jim. And very humble person, but Jim led that project from a month ago, connecting a woman in our community that has not been on the water system for a long time, had no running water. It would not have happened without Jim. And Christmas in Action. We want to say thanks to Christmas in Action as well. So thank you, Jim, for taking the lead on that. That was awesome. Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Okay. I see no chats and no emails. So we'll close public comment. We will bring it to the board. And I'm just going to go in the order on my screen, which is Mike Flood, then John, then Penny. Go ahead, Mike.
I get to be the first Brady Bunch today on the last telecast. Thank you. As far as no has goes, as of right now, we know that July 18th got canceled. They are looking at September 26th and also October 10th. And both of those would be held at the Pontiac Courthouse Complex. They would be moving the one from the Highland OCC Highland campus on October to over there. So stay tuned, folks. Hopefully in September we can get that collection going, because I know a lot of people are saving that stuff. To me, it's sacrilegious to throw that in my garbage. I don't want to put that hazardous material in there, and I can kind of hold on to it. That's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Go to John.
I forgot what my comments were gonna be. I didn't write them down. See, that's what's happening to me now. That kind of stuff. I do want to say like a good thumbs up. I've had reason to be out at some of the parks for different things lately. And especially like, I think the way Jesse Decker Park has developed over the years, it gave me some time to reflect on that. How, you know, you don't just jump in there and spend millions and millions of dollars, you know, to develop a park, but you kind of have an overall thought process and plans. And then over the years, you keep putting elements in place. And right now, that's a very nice park. You know, it's gotten to the point now, it's nice. There's still other things maybe to do, but it's very enjoyable now, you know. And like I say, we didn't just do it all right away, you know, but you go by there anytime. And in the summer, people are constantly using the tennis courts for both tennis and pickleball. You know, now you got the baseball fields out there. I see people using the picnic shelter that was put in there originally. You know, there's a football field there. It's really has developed into something nice, a nice neighborhood park. I think it is a real benefit for the people who live next to that park. And that's kind of how I hope all our parks, you know, keep going. There seems to be a plan now and a slow development. So that's good. I like it. I think they're doing a good job. I hope they keep like that. Like I said, it's not just to have, you know, I got to build the Taj Mahal right away and somehow get that. It's doing it the right way. You know, as we have funds and find creative ways to pay for it, we start moving it in. So good job. I just want to say kudos to the Parks Department for that. And the others, the other parks looking pretty good right now. And like I said, it is kind of weird now. I'm starting to come around. It's definitely time for me to go. Because like I said, when you're replacing things that I remember debating about doing already, like this is probably the second time we've had to redo the pump at Civic Center, but we did the one at Friendship this time. But I know we've done those pumps a couple times, and hey, they just wear out over time. So anyway, it's looking pretty good.
Great. I agree. But thanks for those comments. Penny, then Brian, then Donnie, then Julia. So go ahead, Penny.
So Trustee John Steimo, you are a treasure to the township. You've got a lot of historical perspectives that you bring to us that I'm going to miss immensely. I know you're not on this ballot in August, but you will be missed. And I hope that you are involved in other areas where we can glean from your experience. But thank you for all that you're doing. I appreciate you immensely. Also, we're busy in the clerk's office. We're trying to keep up with everything. So thank you, board, for authorizing to promote to full-time Alyssa. Trustee Mike Flood and Trustee Brian Burney are the election commissioners, and we're keeping them current on everything that's happening with the election process. It seems to be changing because different agencies and groups are trying to get involved. But right now, I think every single voter in Orion Township has an application to request an absent voter ballot. And that's a good thing. It's no reason AV. Eyes are going to be on Michigan as this new law is implemented here in this election in August. But right now, I think we have 6,000 applications that we've received. And it's every day. I think we're adding to that about 500 more. So I wouldn't be surprised if over half of our registered voters, which is about 15,000, will vote absentee. But I want to tell our voters tonight that all of our precincts will be opened. Every single precinct will be open. You can vote in person. We are taking the steps necessary for you to vote safely. I know that we are looking at the CDC requirements for social distancing and safe voting And we are also working with the manufacturers of the equipment, along with the Michigan Municipal Clerks Association and the Bureau of Election to make sure that everything that we're doing is in compliance with those requirements. I'm thankful for the clerk's office staff, but I'm so grateful for our workers. We have about 150 election workers that are being trained, and I am excited to get them enlisted and out in the precincts. And if you know anybody that wants to be a part of that process, send them my way. We are still recruiting workers. We've lost a few with some of the COVID experience. I think some people are rethinking how they want to engage in that process, but I would certainly love to have more people involved. It is a paid position, and we will train you. So get a hold of me in the clerk's office, email pshults@oriontownship.org, and we will get you started in the email distribution to get you trained and get you ready. I want to also thank Julie Savard from the supervisor's office. She helped us last week with a bunch of filing, and I didn't realize this, but Julie started as a voter registration clerk for the township. So it was pretty cool to have her back there talking about full circle. And everyone's doing a good job. We're trying to do our jobs. And I think most of us are doing okay. It is very stressful. I told Brian and Mike when we had our election commission meeting last week, I am not having fun anymore. This is definitely a difficult season that we're all in, and we're all doing the best we can to do our jobs and do them with excellence. So it's hard, but we want to serve the people. So that's all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you, Penny. We'll go to Brian, then Donnie.
Oh, wait, Donnie, are you doing this? Donnie?
Lions Club. Yeah. We
Yes. Okay.
You good, Penny?
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. Just first and foremost for me, I want to, as always, thank our first responders, especially the police. It's not easy being a police officer nowadays, but our brave men and women in Orion Township have seen over 873 calls in the last 14 days here. So I just want to voice my support for them and that department, and all the hardworking law enforcement officers throughout the country that are doing it right. So thank you for your service, and we appreciate it. Also, on top of that, it's great to see events now starting to pop up. The Chamber just announced their golf outing. It's going to happen July 20th. At Paint Creek Country Club. And as always, Lake Orion's American Summer starts June 27th through July 5th. So get out there and support your local businesses.
Thank you, Brian. Donnie?
Thanks, Brian, because I ditto what you say about the police right now. It's God bless them is what I'd like to say and add on to that. But that's in addition, I'd like to bring up that our household waste, non-haz waste that was a couple weekends ago, a week ago from Saturday. She had 271 vehicles. I don't know if I'm stealing your stuff, Mike. 540 yards with 442 tons. And they rescued 12 bikes for Holy Spokes, and they recycled 30 yards of scrap, and they collected 340 pounds of food for the lighthouse in Pontiac. So it's like, it's just so great to see you have a bring your garbage and then drop off food for another philanthropy and then save your bikes for the Holy Spokes. It's like, that's like really working together. So that's really exciting. I'm just really happy to be back at work, or I have been at work, but to have the township open up to the residents as well as of today. So that's really nice. We've got it set up so we can be safe and effective at the same time. So I'm really excited about that. Today was our first big day. And the chamber, it's actually kind of a cool thing. The Pollyann Trail did a bottle drive, and we're close to $24,000 worth of bottles that was collected. Wow. We're not done counting. So I'd like to look into the Lake Orion Lions is having a bottle drive now, and they are donating items over at Liberty Way, which is the real estate company over M24. And they also are doing a food drive at PNC Bank which is on June 20th between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. And they're donating food to the fish. So a philanthropy helping out another philanthropy. It's just awesome. So that's it. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you, Donnie. Julia.
All right, so it is time for your Great Harvest update or your Forgotten Great Harvest. I'm thinking about bread, I'm starving. Forgotten Harvest update for this week again. So this week we had another great turnout. All of our items were gone by 11:30, 11:45, which is still incredible. We're getting just as many cars as we were when we started. This week was grilled chicken breast, fajita chicken strips, pasta, spaghetti sauce, mac and cheese, peanut butter, pecans, walnuts, soup, milk cereal, bell peppers, cucumbers, grapes, jelly, syrup, shredded cheese, and Wheaties and Rice Krispies were all in today's haul that went home with families. So it was such a great day. The sun was shining out there and everyone was excited to be there. And we are excited because there's going to be music out there next week. So we'll be excited to have some tunes while we're out getting things done. We also had grapes. We had the costume. There was a lady dressed up as grapes and she was handing out bags of grapes. So that was good. And the friendly dinosaur was back to entertain the kids as well. So it was another great week out there.
That's awesome. Yay.
Yeah, it's been really good. Thanks, everybody. I have a few things I'll share. On the Forgotten Harvest side of things, Julia has perfect attendance. So thanks for being there every week. Rain or shine. We had a great meeting this morning, first thing this morning at 8 with Woodside Church and Forgotten Harvest. And the good news for Orion residents is we can't say with 100% certainty, but almost 100% that the show will be moving across the road. Originally we were targeting July 6th, the first Monday in July, but we're even potentially looking at doing the last Monday in June. But that means that our residents will, we're going to continue to be a hub, assuming Woodside can work out the logistics, which we think they can. They're on board. So we will continue to be a hub for our residents for food. As you might remember, originally they were going to give us food through May, then they extended it through June. Now they want to make us somewhat of a permanent hub here in Orient, which is really awesome. So thanks to John Dalkey and the Woodside crew for being willing to take that on. It doesn't just serve Orient residents. And the Forgotten Harvest team said our volunteers and our setup is like one of the best. They have 300 sites, by the way, in Oakland, Macomb, and Wayne County they serve. So it's an amazing organization. If you ever get those calls about charities to support, they're one of the good ones. I mean, they have very low admin costs. They just buy a lot of food for a lot of people that are hungry in Southeast Michigan. So thank you, Julia, on that. And thank you to Woodside. I just want to cover a couple more things. The team at Orient has been amazing. We opened our doors to the public today. We have been back for a couple weeks now, but today we've officially opened to the public. We have all the safeguards in place. And so thanks to everyone. I know the board knows this, but members of the public should know that, you know, we've made a lot of budget cuts. We have employees that are furloughed. And so we have a lot employees that are working, wearing multiple hats, and everyone has been phenomenal. So I'm really grateful for the team and everyone rolling up their sleeves and just helping get the job done. So we're blessed to be served by an amazing group here. We wrapped up, I was hosting for, I think, 13 weeks now, the weekly Monday COVID updates. We're going to switch that. We're going to change that from the Orion COVID response team to the Orion community collaboration team, because we found so much benefit in having a weekly call. Now it's going to go monthly with our churches, with our nonprofits, with our food bank, with the schools, with the township, with the village, with police, with fire, and to have 40 people almost every Monday on the call, on video, giving updates. So we're going to continue that momentum that we have, and I want to thank everyone for that. The good news, I'll share my screen for a minute, give you a couple, let you see where we're at on a couple fronts. First, the census. We're doing really well. But we do have, with good news, I'll give you the opportunity. So you can see here is Orion Township. If I'm hovering, and it's probably small, so you can't see it. We're at 81%, which is awesome. you can see where we stack up over here in the list of communities that make up Southeast Michigan. And we are, we're good. We're in the top third for sure. And when you start looking at communities our size, we're one of the best. The opportunity for improvement is our village. And this isn't meant to be negative, but you can see when I hover over them, they're at 67.9%, which is almost the bottom. And again, not meant to be negative. We're not, we're working together. We're assisting the village. It's our, you know, we all live in the same community. But we really need to do our best to boost those numbers because that's cold hard cash coming back to the village and the township for all the programs that we try to fund. So I don't want to say this, but we are still ahead of Independence because they're at 79.5, we're at 81. But Oxford has surpassed us in Oakland and Rochester Hills, so we got to fire that up a little bit. So the other thing I wanted to show you, this is amazing news. This is the county dashboard. And you can see the last 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of 0 deaths in Oakland County for COVID. And only 1 new case added today countywide. Again, 1.2 million residents, 1 new case. That's remarkable. So we want to continue to flatten the curve. The county's got a ton of information. I pull all the data for my bi-weekly videos from their site and from the state site directly. But this is a great site if you're interested in seeing. And you can see this is a 7-day case average, and it is literally flat. And here's a 7-day death average, and it's below 1. So that's great news. I'll stop sharing my screen here for a minute and just give you a couple more updates. The county has the free business toolkits. We are really pushing hard to support local businesses. The sad news is, as we've heard of at least one, I've heard rumors of a few, but the only one I can announce it was public. Powerhouse Gym is done. They won't reopen. And so we know businesses will fail and are starting to announce that. And so we just need to do the best we can to continue to support the local businesses that support our community. And while you're supporting your community, and as Penny mentioned, the elections on August, you will see a police and fire millage on the ballot, and both of our police and fire millages have expired. This board has voted unanimously to put these proposals on the ballot in August. There hasn't been a lot of discussion about it because we've been living at home and staying home. So it's going to certainly be a strange campaign year. But I'm encouraging everyone to do your homework, understand that this is how we fund our police and fire departments, and encourage your support of our police and fire departments. And more information will be coming on those millages as well. I also want to say that we had a couple very peaceful protests that happened in our community. I completely agree with what Trustee Bernie said. We need to support our law enforcement. We also need to support the people in this country that have their First Amendment rights. The reason that people live here, the reason that the reason that sets our country apart from every other country on the face of the earth. And we did both. We continue to support our police and our first responders, and then we also supported those residents' rights to peacefully protest, and they were awesome. I gave them shout outs on social media. I was particularly impressed with Lady Mason, Lake Orion High School student who held an event at Friendship Park last week. It was amazing. It was well attended, and it even prompted a discussion between Aaron Wiley and myself to allow some more of that interaction with our youth at our parks. So we're excited about planning on some future events as we go forward. Support local, and support local. That's all I got. Thank you everyone for your patience. We will be at the Orient Center on July 6th. We will not be on this, but you'll still be able to watch us on ONTV. I will talk to Ian and the crew there about streaming us still on Facebook. I think that's happening and streaming us so people that have got accustomed to seeing us there can see us there as well. And with that, I would entertain a motion to go to closed session to discuss an attorney opinion.
So
Or
Okay, it was moved. Was that Steele and Bernie?
yes.
Okay, so at 9:24, we moved by Steele, supported by Bernie. Roll call, please.
Barnett,
Yes.
Schultz and Steele, yes.
Yes.
Bernie Van Del Rimpo,
yes.
Yes.
Bud Then Steinmal,
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So we will give everyone else a moment. We'll stop the recording and we will have the folks leave and lock the room. And
This conference is no longer being recorded.